Amazing. Today we are live on the SEO Leadership webinar, and today we have the Director of SEO and Content at Obility, Joyce, on our webinar today. Joyce, how are you keeping?
Good. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on so bright and early. And it's currently 8 a.m. by where Joyce is, and it's 5 and 6 p.m. where we are. So it's such an awesome opportunity to get to speak to people across the world, and gather insights and career progression tips and all the fun stuff. So Joyce, we usually like to ask our guests before we get into things, if you can tell us a little bit about your career, how you got into SEO, and sort of a little bit of a backstory to how you got to where you are now at Obility.
Great, of course. So I started at a company called Starcom. So, well, a little bit of background. I'm originally from France, and I moved to the US to go to grad school and study digital marketing. And then from there, we had a lot of classes on, all things digital marketing, but the course on SEO and paid search really stuck with me, especially SEO. It felt like it was a really good mix between data analysis and creativity and knowing a little bit as well about what people were doing online. This was, 2010. So we had information about keywords, about everything. We knew so much back in the day, and I just thought it was fascinating. So I got an opportunity at Starcom to be an SEO analyst. I was there, I believe, for a year and a half, and I had really an amazing SEO manager that taught me so much. And we were working with lots of different industries, primarily healthcare, but lots of different brands. And it was a big agency, and I think that really helped me as well because I was able to talk to people who were working on completely different accounts, working in different industries. From there, I left the agency world and I went to motorsport, which was completely different. It was more of a e-com B2C website. And up until then, I used to work with smaller websites. This was a website with hundreds of thousands of pages. And it was a very different experience. And that's where, I kind of had to rethink how I was doing SEO. And I did a lot more of product-specific update or what we called product sprint at the time. So that was really interesting. And what I loved at motorsport, I was the only SEO, so I was allowed to do everything that I wanted. I could update the pages whenever I wanted. I could, I taught a lot about international SEO, hreflang tags, metadata, cookie tracking, all of that stuff. And yeah, everyone was really, people on my team were really interested. It was really a great opportunity. And then I moved to Obility, and I've been at Obility for 9 years now. I absolutely love being at Obility. I had lots of different jobs. I started an SEO manager, moved to a senior position. Then I took a little bit of a tangent to the analytics and SEO specialist. I moved to the SEO supervisor, content supervisor, and now I'm the director of the SEO and content team. So I don't do as much, hands-on SEO, but I still absolutely love SEO. So yeah, I'm staying in this field for a long time, I think.
Brilliant.
Wow. Was interesting.
Yeah, Joyce, just on that, obviously your experience with motorsport's quite unique, going from obviously moving from agency into in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were the only SEO, it's obviously, again, a lot tougher. Just out of curiosity, what did you sort of prioritize? What was like the main sort of first thing to do on the strategy whenever you first started and you saw the website?
I remember spending hours and hours redoing metadata, the metadata, because so it was a website with tons and tons of product pages, and the metadata was either auto-generated or there was none. So really going with the high-level pages and updating the metadata manually, trying to fix the technical errors as well. We had so many 404s, we had so many duplicated pages as well. So that was a big project at first. And really just understanding what the traffic looked like on the website. So the reporting was a big part of it as well. We used to do weekly reporting, which now that I'm in B2B seems madness. But just trying to understand where's the traffic coming from, how are people navigating the website, what are we missing, internal links we need to add, that sort of thing. So I think, yeah, those were really my first big areas of priority.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
I actually was going to ask you about the weekly reporting because I saw this on your description, part of your responsibilities there, and I was like, you must have gained a lot of experience naturally from that, speaking and mastering communication skills when doing the reporting side of things. I guess my question would be, when you first started with motorsport, what were some of the bottlenecks that you were struggling with communication wise? And I guess now looking back as a director, if you had to like advise someone or give an SEO that's in that position any advice on weekly reporting, what would you tell them?
I think the biggest communication challenge is because I was still at the beginning of my career, and there's a lot of times where I doubted myself, or I doubted, I remember redoing the report again and again and thinking, oh, this can't be right. Like I must have made a mistake, and wasting a lot of time redoing things. So I think if I knew what I know now, I would be more confident in some of my analysis, and I think I would be thinking bigger as well, and I would not be so intimidated by a new team, or even just the size of the website used to really intimidate me. When it comes to weekly reporting, I think it made sense for us at the time because, again, it was a huge website getting tons of traffic, but I think it's just too frequent for SEO in general. Now at Obility, we have daily dashboard that update automatically. I wish I had Google data like Looker back then, and I knew about automation. But now we do the really big analysis, in-depth analysis that we do is mostly on a quarterly basis, because really trying to draw a conclusion for SEO optimization within a week, I think that really throws a wrench into your progress. It's actually kind of detrimental because things take time to get indexed, and the seasonality, and especially in ecom we had a lot of promotions. So I think I would not go with weekly reporting. I think I would look at it on a monthly basis. Oh, and one more piece of advice from my past self is also talk a little more with other services, like know what promotion the sales team is doing, the offline marketing as well, the email promotion. I think that would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of headache of why is the traffic down? Well, because we turned off this thing on the paid side,
Yeah.
Awesome. And just one more question on that. Now that you've moved into monthly and quarterly reporting, I guess you can answer this in a hypothetical situation. You don't have to go too personal into it, but who would you, I guess I'm asking this from the sense of if someone is moving into a leadership position and entering into having to do those reports as well and conduct them, who would you ideally put in that room with you to report to, and how would you sort of as the leader of your department, of the SEO department, what sort of main topics would you consider including in that report?
I think reports need to be tailored to who you're reporting to. I would not report the same way if I was talking to a CMO, or if I was talking to a marketing manager, or even a director of marketing. I really like reporting to either marketing managers, I guess to everyone, but I think it's hard sometimes for SEOs to find a balance between giving the detail and identifying the trends. I think we all love knowing, like, this page went up, this keyword went down, like here's what it's going. But if you're talking to a CMO, that person will likely not care about all the nitty-gritty. I think focusing on the impact of a project is much more valuable, and calling out the attention to the trends is much more valuable. So I think we need the nitty-gritty data to be able to get to our high-level trends, but I would advise to leave all that stuff in the appendix and think about what is the most impactful thing that I can tell that person in 15 minutes. Sometimes I feel like we spend a little too much time reporting at people, especially in agencies, because we think that this is how we prove our worth or prove, but we deserve to keep working with the client, but really the results would speak for themselves. And a lot of our clients, when asked, do you mind if we do a shorter reporting and we use that time to work on projects, they always say yes.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay.
I love that, especially that shorter thing and focus more on the actual doing the work. I think that's great. Joyce, just on that, I know obviously motorsport you mentioned at the start was more sort of like an e-commerce sort of website, and now you've focused more on the B2B with Obility.
Yes.
When you moved to Obility, what was the sort of the biggest challenges in that sort of B2B niche or market? And has that changed to what sort of the big challenges are now with clients?
I would say the biggest change was getting used to the B2B cycle. At motorsport, it was a person goes in, gets a jacket, puts it in a car, buys it. And B2B, it's completely different. The sales cycle is so long, it takes months. It's you have to convince multiple people in the room. There's also, in certain industry, not that much differentiator between one product to another. We work with a lot of tech companies, and I think tech companies seems to have topics that they favor, and so sometimes being able to find your differentiators that are not, with AI, for example, a few years it was big data. Everyone wanted to have a take on AI or big data or how they're using it with their product, and it does not always apply. And especially when you have to convince the marketing manager and their boss and the CMO and the owner of the company to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a solution, you have to be more precise and you have to marry the long tail keywords and the short tail keywords. Like you have to be able to catch people all throughout the sales cycle. And I think that did not apply as much as motorsport or in B2C or in e-com in general.
Okay. And so when you're sort of hiring then, do you look for people with specific B2B experience, or do you think that's something that you can sort of easily teach now to other SEO, even more junior people?
I think anyone can learn. It's not really a differentiating factor to me. I think the beauty of SEO is that the best practices at its core, the best practice is the same. So we just have to learn about a new industry. You have to learn about the long sales cycle, potentially difference in tracking and reporting. But if you can learn about SEO, I think you can learn about anything. In the SEO, any industry, especially people who have had experience with agencies, we're all used to working in tons of different industries.
Brilliant. No, I love it.
Just actually on the topic of, understanding a B2C cycle versus a B2B cycle, what was your first initial, I guess, if you could take us back to your first initial experience working with a B2B cycle, and what were your emotions or your mindset going through that? And did you sort of feel any pressure from higher ups, or was that something that you felt they understood? And like, how, if someone is in your position, what would you advise for them to help them communicate that the B2B cycle does take longer, and for people to basically calm down a little bit?
Well, that's what I like about B2B in general, is that the people that we talk to also could know that things take time, or that the B2B cycle is long. So that part, I don't think is hard to explain. I think what is harder to explain is, well, I published this piece of content 3 weeks ago, nothing's happening, what's going on? Well, it's usually, I did a test a while ago to see how long things actually take, and it is around 90 days. And we all say this, it all say like it takes 90 days for SEO efforts to come to friction. And sometimes people seem like could forget about that too. So I think that is an important thing to remember. I would not advise making big changes back to back within that 90 days, window. The seasonality also really surprised me, the impact of seasonality on B2B in general. Obviously the holidays and everything, but when you are looking at more international companies, there's different holidays all over the world and we don't know them all. And I remember that one time a coworker came to me and said, was something happening in France on May 1st? Like our traffic completely plummeted from France, and it's our Labor Day, and French people take Labor Day very seriously. So that sort of little things, I think really it surprised me how much of an impact it had. And what surprised me was the price of some of these solutions. I remember working for a company that were doing cloud warehouse for movies, and they were telling me that they had nearly 50 clients. And I was like, is this it? Because their solution was so expensive. They had a full team and they had an office in San Francisco, and they could pay for all of this with their 50 clients. That was really something I was so surprised about. So, but I think in general, I love working with people in the B2B space. I think we understand each other really well.
Awesome.
I love that, Joyce. And one of the things, Joyce, that I've chatted to a lot of people recently about is like being layoffs and stuff like that. And two people actually I spoke to today of this, like apparently the company just went about it completely the wrong way. People were getting laid off via like email and stuff like that, like not even like a face-to-face. You've obviously been with Obility for, you said, like 9 years now. What is it about Obility that makes someone stay there for so long and has that environment where you feel like you can continually grow?
It is unusual, I think, in the agency world to stay this long at a company. And a lot of people at Obility are on the 5-year plus. All of us on the leadership team have been at Obility for over 5 years as well. So I think the company culture is what makes people stay. In fact, we've had people leave and then come back. I think really our values of, trusting people, and I always, during interviews, people ask me what's your favorite thing about Obility, and I always say I feel like everyone is treated like an adult. We trust people to make their own recommendations to client. We trust people to explore new strategies. We trust people with how they manage their day. I'm not a clock watcher that's gonna, if you have to go to the doctor, if you have to go pick up your children from school, do it. I don't, as long as the quality of the work is there and things are on time, that's really all I care about. And I think that is a mindset that a lot of us at Obility have. I think the work-life balance is something that keeps people at Obility too. And I think the innovation aspect, we really encourage people to pursue new strategy, test out new tools. The analytics role that I was telling you about earlier, that was a role that didn't exist. And I worked with my manager and we created it. And we've done that for other roles too. We just did a new position for, I'm forgetting the proper title, but it's sort of a director and execution strategist for customer success managers. But it was a tribe that didn't exist before either. So I think Obility is very open to trying new things, and that makes people excited to stay.
Love that. And from a management perspective, is that something different than what you've experienced before? Is that something, how did you sort of go into that management style where you can become that sort of trustworthy with people? Do you have that sort of leadership before you, whenever you were like a more junior, or is that something you had to just learn on the job?
That's a good question. I think my managers at Obility were also trusting. I've been very lucky that I've had lots of great managers. I can't really think of a bad experience that I've had. I think sometimes the company culture was a little different from what we have at Obility, but overall, I think I've always been trusted by my manager. And I think I've learned from example. And I think in general, I'm a pretty trusting person. And so I will, start with trusting people until I feel like I have a reason for it to not work. And it has happened as well at Obility, where, you know, it's not a culture that fits everyone. And some people start and then it turns out it's not for them. It's not what they're looking for. It happens, and that's okay. I'd rather start with trusting people.
Awesome. Just back to you having sort of created roles within your team and having currently created a new role. I'm currently sort of working on an article at the moment about helping SEOs sort of speak to their higher ups about opening budget for more roles to come to grow their SEO teams up. And what advice would you be able to offer, like, I guess, in terms of speaking to or convincing someone to open up budget to make room for more roles in the SEO team?
I would consider really specialized roles. So the content team, for example, did not exist at Obility until a little over 2 years ago. And it was a risk. We did not know if this would work out, if there would be an appetite for content from clients. And it really did work out. I looked at the data recently. 2 years ago, when we started, we used to write 5 pieces of content per month. And the last month in August this year, we were at 74. So it clearly is working. So I would explore, you know, do you need somebody with analytics specialties, with web development, with content, with international SEO? What skills are currently missing from your SEO team? And it also doesn't have to be a brand new hire. It can be someone where you free up 40% of their time, and then we focus on that specialty until there's enough room for it to become a full-time position. But in my experience, it has been working pretty well for us. So I would recommend it, especially if you don't have anyone on the content side right now. I'm preaching for my own choir right now, but I think it has been a great thing to build at Obility.
Awesome. Great.
And Joyce, on that, just the topic of sort of hiring, you mentioned just before we went live that you guys have just hired somebody. They're starting at this next week. So congratulations. How was that hiring process at the minute? Because I know for candidates out there, it's really tough. The market's very competitive. For clients, they're getting a lot of like applications, and a lot of them aren't sort of required skill sets aren't there or anything like that. How did you guys find it? What was the sort of the time frame for it?
The time frame, it was around a couple of months, which is a little faster than usual. We do hire slow at Obility. Like the hiring process can be slow. We just compressed it a little bit. Before, we used to have a meeting with the HR, and then a meeting with the director of the department, and then another interview with the supervisor, and then a panel interview. So we grouped, I know it's a lot, and we have to do a presentation as well. So we grouped those 2 interviews with director and supervisor, and we asked people to take a test instead. And we do compensate candidates for taking the test, because, you know, those things take time. From my perspective, what's hard is that I get, for this specific position, there was, I believe, 260 applicants. And so after a while, all the resumes are kind of looking the same. So my advice to people in this industry would be to be as precise as possible in their resume. You know, sometimes I see a resume with a high-level description of, you know, optimized website for key metrics that really tells me nothing. You know, talk about a specific project and share some data, and just be precise about what you have done, who you reported it with to, who you worked with, if there is client names that you can share, anything that will grab the attention of the person that is skimming through, you know, those dozens and dozens of resumes. But I know it's very hard to be on the other side, and it is discouraging when you apply and apply and apply and you keep being rejected. So I feel for people that are in the job search right now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that CV tip. I'm going to post that on LinkedIn on Monday as well. And just to follow up on that, if I know it might be a bit awkward to try and remember, like sometimes when you're put in the spot, you do forget, but was there anything that somebody did in an interview or somebody answered in an interview that really sort of stood out to you when you heard it?
So I think it's mostly after the interview. I love when I ask a question, people don't have the answer. That happens all the time. Nobody has all the answers. But then afterwards, they do their research and they either email me or in the next interview say like, oh, you asked me, a classic question is the difference between B2B and B2C. And that stumps a lot of people. And so we do the research and then they get back to me and say like, oh, I looked into this and here are my thoughts on your question. Or, I've had people send me articles afterwards about a topic we've talked about, or I even had someone ask me for homework after the interview. So not that it made a difference, but it stayed with me. In general, I really like when people in interviews come prepared. Sometimes it is kind of obvious that, they don't come prepared, and then it's much better when people are able to share some projects they worked on, just actual a concrete example of what's been done instead of being too high level.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more.
Awesome. I'm actually trying to figure out how to ask this question. You mentioned on your when you were working at Motorsport that you supported efforts of internationalization by providing English to Spanish and English to French translation on the website elements, as well as international SEO best practices.
Mm-hmm.
My basic question is, how did you find that? And do you have any tips to other SEOs that are currently sort of going through a process like that? And what sort of advice would you give to them if they were put in that position of, just trying to implement best international SEO practices?
International SEO is such a beast. It's not even the translation aspect that is the hardest in my experience. It's really the technical aspect. So I would say make a list with all the elements that you have to check, because there's so many, the href link tags, the different Google Search Console, the subdomain versus subdirectory, like all of that stuff. So I'm blanking on her name. I think it's Aida Solis, I believe, that has lots of great resources about international SEO. And she has built a tool where you can test your href link tags as well. I keep calling it Ahref. It's href link tag, so I'm getting confused with the tool. I would say make a list of all the elements that you have to do and take the website small subdirectories by subdirectories as well, because it's easy to get overwhelmed, especially with the href link tags, which are the bane of all of the international SEO's existence. And be very clear with your team as well on what countries and what language you're targeting, because your tag is going to look different if you're targeting French in Canada, French in Belgium, French in France, like etc. So you have to be thinking about all of this, and you have to be thinking about what piece of content you're going to translate and what will stay in your primary language. I see lots of websites with some titles are in English, some titles are in other languages, some pieces are in Portuguese or whatever, and then you have to create a cohesive experience. And you also have to think about the small detail, like your currency, even in currency, like where do you put the currency sign, the 24-hour clock versus the 12-hour in the US, like that sort of thing. It really is a long process. So I guess my advice is be prepared and don't rush.
Awesome. I love that. I think to sort of lighten the beast of a question that was, I'll just end off with a nice sort of soft landing. If I'm getting this right, you moved from agency to in-house, then back to agency.
Yes.
Okay. What was that like for you?
I realized that I just love agency life. I think I really like being in agency better than being in-house. I like the variety of clients and industry. I like having a team, so I can ask questions and, having people share their new project, their new discovery and everything. So it was not hard. I feel like the change from agency to in-house was a little harder because I had to adapt to being in a completely different team, working on the same website all the time. So I don't see myself going back in-house in the near future. I think, I love agencies.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that hits us on the spot of 30 minutes. But yeah, thank you so much. There was so much information in those 30 minutes. Sorry to wake you up so early in the morning and
It's
ask
okay.
all the hard questions. But yeah, Joyce, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. And if anyone is listening and wants to follow you and connect with you, I'll be popping your LinkedIn in our YouTube section as well. And yeah, Joyce, that was a great LinkedIn Live, and I hope you have a fantastic Friday
Thank you.
and great weekend as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everything. I had a great time as well. So yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Cheers, Joyce.
Bye.